Live from the SABC's Auckland Park studios, welcome to this Friday's episode of The Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. Now, as election fever peaks and politicians crisscross the country, promising to fix all your problems, our panel for this evening takes a dispassionate look at the country's water crisis, the extent of the challenge, its causes, and the possible solutions. But first, did you know that you can now apply for an ID and it don't take more than 12 days to get it? Well, that's the promise Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi made yesterday. He's on standby to briefly talk us through this special dispensation. The Watchdog starts now. Now, if you were issued with a temporary ID certificate, or like me, you lost your ID, you can now return to Home Affairs offices to apply for your ID. And your ID will be ready, waiting for you to collect it within 13, that's 13 days from the day of application. But that is not all the minister will be talking about. The minister and I will be talking about this evening. Cabinet this week approved the appointment of the first border control commissioner. Could this be the solution to South Africa's porous border problem? That and more coming up in a moment. Well, let's start that conversation with the Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi. Good evening, Minister. Thank you very much for your time. How did this special dispensation, maybe I should ask first, I mean, how long, under normal circumstances, how long does it take for a person to apply for all the way to getting their ID or the ID being ready for collection at a Home Affairs office?
Good evening, Vuyo, and good evening to the viewers out there. Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, Vuyo, we do have lots of problems in Home Affairs, but when it comes to application for an ID, we have mastered it, and I can promise that within a period of 5 days to 13 days, your ID will be ready for correction. We will send you an SMS to come and collect your ID. Our only frustration is those people who, even after receiving the SMS, they still don't come to collect the ID. You are aware that during the IEC registration weekend of the 18th and 19th of September, we mentioned that there are 370,000 IDs that has not been collected, despite the fact that the people who applied for them have actually received SMSs to come and collect them. But that is the promise we are giving, and we usually carry it on. The government printing works is very fast these days, and we are also fast. As far as IDs are concerned, yes, we are able to do that.
So it's not so much a special dispensation then. I guess you were here. It was part of, I suppose, the drive to get people to go and get their IDs so that they can vote.
No, it was not a special dispensation. What was special during the weekend of the 18th and 19th, what was special was that it was a weekend and Home Affairs was open during weekend. It usually is not. We are still fighting that battle and negotiating with the unions to make Home Affairs be open during the weekend. But at the moment, the negotiations are still going on. So opening on a Saturday and Sunday was something that was new. But in terms of making sure that after applying for your ID, you get it within 5 and 13 days, it's not something that is special. We have actually made that standard.
Okay. Now, this week, at your cabinet meeting on Wednesday, you had sought and obtained approval to go ahead and appoint a border control commissioner, and this is employee number 1. and this is the same guy, or person, I should say, who will be responsible for, is it over 8 billion rands, the budget that has been set aside for this particular task?
Indeed, Vuyo, indeed. I was very, very excited, I still am, about the fact that the President, in terms of the Border Management Authority Act, has appointed a commissioner, the first ever commissioner, who is going to be responsible for our borders. In the same vein, he has also appointed a deputy commissioner operation, because in terms of the Border Management Authority Act, there has to be a commissioner held by 2 deputy commissioners. One is for operation, the other is for corporate services. So we are still busy with the process of appointing a commissioner for corporate services, a deputy commissioner for corporate services. But the commissioner for border management and the deputy commissioner for operations are there, and they are going to start the work very soon. And that's why I'm so excited about it, because it was long overdue. Remember, it took Parliament to come up to finalize the Border Management Authority Act so that we have got the Border Management Authority. The 8 billion rand we are talking about, Vuyo, it's not the whole budget. Actually, the budget might be much more than that. But the 8 billion rand is what presently various departments that are found at the borders, departments and agencies at the borders, is what they are spending on personnel. Remember, at the borders, we have got close to 7 agencies. We have got Home Affairs, we have got SARS, you have got Agriculture, you have got South African Police Services, you have got Environment, you have got Health. All those departments, when you put them together, the amount of money they are spending at the borders is 8 billion rand, which will, of course, be transferred to the Border Management Authority. But because there are still going to be other portfolios, like the border guards who are not there at the present moment, the budget will be much more than that.
Remind South Africans again of why there was a need to go this route as opposed to status quo. Well,
the present commissioner, fortunately, the person who has been appointed as a commissioner, was once a Director General of NICOC, the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee. And the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee, they do what they call, they assess the risk, intelligence estimate, to assess the risk of crime and other malfeasance in the country. And during that time, they discovered that we have got a lot of problems at the borders. The borders are porous, it's very risky to the security of the country. So he came with a concept, after studying the situation, why there's a weakness, the concept of Border Management Authority, which was then handed over to Parliament to enact an act. And after 10 years, eventually, the Border Management Authority Act exists, whereby the borders will be now managed in the way I've mentioned. Remember that we do have a Commissioner of Police in the country, but the Commissioner of Police is responsible of police work throughout the length and breadth of South Africa. We do have, obviously, deputy commissioners, but now the border management, the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority will be at the same level with the Commissioner of Police, but their sole focus will be at the borders. The two deputy commissioners, their sole focus will also only be on the borders. Means every day when they wake up, their work is about what is happening at the borders.
And what is happening at the borders? And I'm not asking you, Minister, to go through everything, but just the key things that, make it clear to all and sundry how important borders are and what is at risk in the event people who break the law are actually allowed in or out.
Well, the first obvious thing, Vuyo, is that the borders are porous. We've never run away from that fact. We've conceded that the borders are porous. That's why we've got many illegal people. Many people come into South Africa illegally. The Border Management Authority is not going to stop people from coming to South Africa, but is going to insist that if you come into South Africa, you have to come through the normal ports of entry, the normal gates. You are aware we've announced that on the land border, we have got 53 gates of entry. Come up through all those, even though because of COVID, we have closed 33 of them, only 20 are in operation. But there are still gates of entry through which people must come. We also have seaports, 8 of them. We also have international airports, 11 of them. We are saying when people visit the country, there are enough ports of entry, seaports, land ports, and airports through which they can come. They mustn't come illegally. That's one of the biggest functions of the Border Management Authority. The second one is that even at the gates of entry, there are people who do corruption, who come in through fraudulent documents, who come in through fake documents, who come in through surreptitious means, and the Border Management Authority is going to stop them. You are also aware, you have seen it on TV, cars crossing the border, stolen cars crossing the border, especially around the Mangusi area in the KwaZulu-Natal, where stolen Mercedes-Benzes cross into Mozambique. The Border Management Authority is going to be given that job to make sure that when any car leaves the country, they leave so legally, and the tax has been levied and all the custom duties have been paid. That's basically going to be the job of the Border Management Authority.
I thought I should I
forgot issues. Yes, I forgot issues like counterfeit goods, child trafficking, women trafficking. All those is what the Border Management Authority will make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yes, Minister, and I thought it was important to talk about those in very specific terms, so that you know, we don't take the importance of this initiative for granted. Now, it's going to take 15 years, according to reports, for this to be implemented. Why such a long time, given just how much is at stake here? Fully
implemented, fully implemented, it will take 15 years, because of the number of people who are needed, because of the amount, the functions which the Border Management Authority will have to take over. For instance, at the moment we are concentrating on the land port of entry and the land line. The border land line is 4,772 kilometers long, and it has to take care of that. You still have the sea, what you call the sea borderline, which is about 3,900 kilometers. So at the beginning, we are not doing much at the sea. The army is still 100% very much in charge of the sea. We'll be concentrating on the land. Now, according to the Border Management Authority Act, we have got to hire border guards, who at some stage must number thousands. I think it's going to be about 15,000, if I'm not mistaken. And to hire them, because of the problem with the fiscus, it's going to be bit by bit until we reach a particular number of the border management guards who will be helping to guard our borders, to make sure that people only come legally in South Africa and never illegally. And because we are also going to be buying very expensive equipment, like drones and all the other equipment that is used internationally at the borders, that will also take time. We are also going to buy very expensive scanners, whereby, you know, there are scanners internationally, whereby a truck which is carrying goods doesn't just go through the borders. It has got to go through a scanner, which will see almost everything, including a cigarette that has been stolen, including currency that may be going through the borders, including alcohol. All those are very, very expensive equipment, and it will take a long time. So when we say 15 years, we are not saying the Border Management Authority will only work after 15 years. We'll say everything that needs to be done will have been completed in 15 years' time.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Dr. Motsoaledi, thank you very much for your time. He is, of course, the Minister of Home Affairs, talking there about the appointment of Dr. Nagambe Masiapato as the Commissioner for Border Control, beginning of a long process that is going to be implemented over 15 years. But a lot of it will, in fact, as the Minister just explained, be a consolidation of what we currently have. And he went through what is at stake if status quo remains. After the break, our panel looks at local government's role in resolving the country's water crisis. Welcome back. For more than 5 years now, parts of South Africa have been experiencing severe droughts. Many are on the verge of running out of water, with record-level water shortages. Burst pipes, leaks are the order of the day in certain communities. Now, until we get into election mode, where all manner of promises get made, a great majority of councillors appear helpless, unable to assist communities beset with water problems. The town of Adelaide in the Eastern Cape is just one example.
This is the Adelaide Dam. It is supposed to cater for the town and surroundings, but it's drying up. To date, Gift of the Givers drilled 11 boreholes to provide water for domestic and commercial use.
It seems like we may have to drill more boreholes in this area and in Bedford, and especially in Adelaide Hospital. We've been battling to find water for the Adelaide Hospital because so often when water shuts down, it affects the procedures, it affects the patients, and at the hospital itself, there's no proper rock formation to get the correct type of water.
Communities are breathing a sigh of relief for now, but they are concerned that the boreholes might run dry.
Was struggling for a long time with water, but at the end of the day, the givers was the people who support us with water. And there was a time when we don't have water for 2 or 3 months,
where we can be built a Foxwood Dam so that our community can get a lot of water, including our towns, because the Foxwood Dam can cover these areas, Adelaide and Bedford.
The government says it's working on a long-term plan for the province.
The Eastern Cape is not really in a crisis when you look at it from the point of view of 5 big rivers in this province. It's a question of us intervening in management and making sure that we use these rivers and distribute water evenly to everybody.
While there is no significant rain forecast for the area, residents are being urged to use water sparingly. Lubabalo Tata, SABC News, Adelaide.
Well, residents of Motibistad outside Kuruman in the Northern Cape say they will have to make sure they choose councillors who are able to solve their service delivery problems. They too are experiencing problems that many other towns and cities across the country are experiencing. Take a look at their case.
17 years ago, Vivian de Bakwe moved into a brand new RDP home, but it did not have all the amenities. While she has taps and a flush toilet, there's no water connected to the house.
It's a lot of stress because I have to go a long way to get water from neighborhood. In extent to Mapoti village, when there is maybe 2 days without water,
in the other lady's place.
Tabakwe is not the only one. Hundreds of neighbors have the same problem.
Yeah, we spoke with councillor, municipality didn't take any action. Yeah, we are surviving with the Jojo's tank, and sometimes if the rain, we get some water.
Some streets here in Motibistad have at least one residence with running water, and so others in the neighborhood stream to their houses to get water. Some sell the water to cover the cost, while others like matron Batlopeng has made a deal with the municipality not to pay for water in order to assist the neighbors.
There's no way when someone is coming to ask for water, I will not help them, because I also don't know how I'm getting water when everyone else doesn't get water.
Residents say they've been fighting with the municipality for nearly 2 decades, and they get confusing answers about why they don't have water and what it will take to fix it. The Gasogonyane local municipality says their infrastructure is old and was not upgraded to cater for a growing population.
It's not easy that we can cater for everyone, like I indicated, because of the high demand. But we are trying to do that by over-pumping our boreholes. But part of the long-term plan of the municipality is that we now have the newly introduced grant called the Neighborhood Development Partnership Program, where with that we hope that we will be able to meet the challenges in Motibistad.
With November the 1st looming, residents say those who seek their crosses will have to pay more than lip service.
It's going to be so difficult to vote for people that doesn't care to deliver us service, because you go and vote. After you vote for them, they sit there, they enjoy their life, and they do not care about us community.
Others have vowed to boycott the coming local government elections, but they're still hoping that the new council will finally be able to bring running water into their homes. Ulrich Hendricks, SABC News, Motibistad, Northern Cape.
To help us understand the nature of these water problems and how the new crop of local government representatives that will be elected after November 1 can help resolve them, let's welcome Valerie Naidu, who is the CEO of the Water Research Commission. She is joined by Tami Ngubane, who is the National Chairperson of the Water and Sanitation Working Group at the South African Local Government Association. Welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for your time. Sincere apologies for delaying this conversation by about 2 days. The day before there was the big story of the day around digital vibes, and yesterday there was the president having to speak at the time, about the same time we were scheduled to have this conversation. But thanks to both of you for agreeing to stay on and coming through still tonight.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to start with you, Valerie, if I may, because the whole point of this conversation is to get South Africans to understand the nature of all these problems, but hopefully to help those who will be, elected on November 1 to also get a better understanding, of the nature of our water problems, but to also, cut through the election, noise to be able, so that we are able, or all of us are able to put our finger on the real problems, and so that whoever then makes unrealistic promises and all of that stuff can be called out or be seen for who they are. Now, in that first insert, I like the way the minister makes it sound so simple. Here you have a community that goes for 2-3 months, from what the residents were telling our journalists, without water. And then the minister comes and then he says, oh, actually, it's a question of a long-term plan that we should have. The question is, why do you not have that long-term plan? But not only that, The Eastern Cape shouldn't really be in a crisis because it has about 5 rivers. Now, here's what people are like battling to understand. If the problem and the solution to it are as simple as he's putting it, why then, are these solutions not being implemented? So take us step by step as to from where you sit, the problem lies.
Thanks, Vuyo. Firstly, let me correct you. I'm not the CEO of the Water Research Commission. I'm an executive technical manager. Okay. But going back to your question, I think Eastern Cape has quite a high quantity of groundwater as well as some of those river systems. I don't think it's as simple as to say that communities will all be fed by surface water supplied in the Eastern Cape. I think that's probably not going to be the future for the Eastern Cape. It's going to be a diversified mix between surface water, between managing groundwater systems in a much more sustainable, abstraction, recharge kind of framework, and maybe also looking at making sure that households become very resilient between capture mechanisms at the household level, at the local level, at the regional level. So I think going forward, while we are largely municipalities that deal with surface water, in South Africa, because of the high-risk climate, because of some of the predictions around climate change, we are going to have to create more resilient models to take us forward in that space. So in those communities, I think the bigger question is, as we move towards building and accessing more infrastructure, how are we going to build also the resilience and the sustainability of these systems such that we're planning correctly for these communities? We put the right kind of infrastructure in place, and we're also honest to them in terms of the environments that they're currently living in, and that to some extent build behavior changes, build resilience into these communities such that they know then how to prepare as we go into what I would consider a pretty difficult environment in South Africa between what we call the drought spells and the rainfall events that will occur frequently over time.
Whose job is it to come up with these more resilient models, as you call them?
So I think in the Water Research Commission, we've spent now quite a bit of time, and we definitely are sending quite a bit of information through, and we've developed quite a few reports around where we've sent it to the department, we've sent it, and we speak to a lot of the local municipalities, where we say, in addition to putting the surface water infrastructure in, you also need to think about maybe using groundwater infrastructure far more in future if we are to build resilient infrastructure for communities such that they can actually count on those that sort of supply or level of assurance of supply.
But the implementation, I mean, you're talking about, the infrastructural issues, you're talking about behavioral change, which involves a whole host of players, who would have to come on board. Who brings, these people together, or whose responsibility is it?
So I think that, through the Department of Water and Sanitation, they do have a master plan. It does signal all of these issues and some of the things that need to be done. However, at the level at which, say, these communities are operating in the municipalities, it does occur at the municipal level at the moment. And I think that as a country, we need to make sure that we continually try to get these coordination groups together, because you're quite correct. Behavior change is a long-term campaign. It's very much like a litter campaign. It's about saying to every South African, this is our new reality. This is how we need to actually change some of our behaviors. This is how we need to engage around some of the infrastructure. But at the same time, you have to build resilience within the municipalities, which is new skills. in most municipalities today, there are no groundwater specialists. Yet that is a viable source of supply going into the future. So I think there needs to be an upskilling and a reskilling around some areas. We need to rethink how infrastructure gets put in, the different options of infrastructure on the ground. And, this normally occurs through COCTA and the municipalities, and those are the bodies that actually take care of that. As the WRC, what we do is we try and signal as much as possible to the municipalities that these are some of the tools you can use, these are some of the models and innovations that you could use. You just need to now test it, see if it's appropriate, and then scale it up if it is appropriate for those environments.
Tami Ngubane, it's supposed to happen or occur, as Valerie says, at a municipal level. But is that happening?
No, thanks for your good evening to yourself and your team, and also those who are watching. Voi, it's important that probably we start from the beginning. It's important that we look at the whole value chain process of providing water service. Because the municipality comes at the tail end in the value chain process. If you go to section 4 and 5B of the Constitution, in the value chain process, it says municipality only comes when it's time for reticulation services. But if you look at the totality, let's paint the totality picture. One, before we can be able to provide water to everyone, there must be a source. Once the source is there, the bulk services comes in, where you draw from the source, treat water so that it is fit for consumption, store it. That's another player. So at the bottom, the people who are responsible for the source is the water, is the national department. The second role player who's there in the space are those who are responsible for the bulk services. They treat water, ensure that it's fit for consumption, and store it. The municipality comes at the end when we are now regulating, supplying a potable water now to the consumers, to the household. So more often than not, when there is a dissatisfaction, whether people are not getting water and so on and so forth, it's important that we locate the challenge, the whereabouts of the challenge in the value chain process. For instance, there I was watching and listening attentively. You played a clip where the people of Northern Cape are complaining about the issue of the access to water and its reliability. And therefore, they are accusing the municipality. I think that approach is wrong, because obviously the municipalities in the Northern Cape will, firstly, we need to investigate whether there is a source.
Can I stop you right there? Can I stop you right there? And I want to take you back. And this is why this conversation is so important. Because the journalist in that story went to the municipality, first of all, and then went to the residents. The residents say they are getting confusing answers from the municipality, right? And then the journalist says, we went to the municipality to hear for ourselves what the explanation is. The Gaskonyana municipality says the infrastructure is old and it hasn't been upgraded for a growing population, right? And then you have the municipal manager saying, and I quote, it's not easy that we can cater for everyone because of the high demand, but we are trying to do that by over-pumping our boreholes. Part of the problem of the long-term plan of the municipality is that we have a newly introduced grant called the Neighborhood Development Partnership Program, where we hope to meet the challenges in Motibista. In other words, he's saying it's not like we are unable to, deal with these problems or resolve these problems. We just haven't gone there yet. And there are other attendant problems, which is that, the growth of the population or of the community versus what we are able to do now. And that's what people know. That's what people have been told. That's what our journalists have been told. So what you may think then is the real reason, or the unanswered questions become a bit irrelevant here or in this instance, because questions were asked and answers were provided. And on the basis of answers that were provided, it is clear that the municipality itself is taking responsibility for what is happening in Motibista, at least.
Yes, Vuyo, I think it's also important that the dissatisfaction by communities like the one you are referring to, it's not a problem, but it's an indication of the problem. You remember that this is the 4th administration. On the 1st of November, we'll be moving to the 5th administration, which is a new dispensation of wall-to-wall municipality. We are coming from the municipalities that were only catering for towns and cities. The people in the rural areas were not getting anything at all. The people in the township were getting the service, but of inferior quality. Now, when the wall-to-wall new local government dispensation came in, they were faced with the two challenges. One, you've got a majority that does not have infrastructure. If they do have in the township, it's of inferior quality. Secondly, you've got towns and cities that do have infrastructure. So for them, the question that government needs to answer is only the issue of the reliability of the service. The element of reliability, which is a challenge on those who are in the cities and towns, is the issue of one, safe water that flows for 24 hours, that is reliable. Whereas in the other communities, because of the laws that were segregation law, that different people on the basis of race, in the township and also in the rural areas, you need to invest resources to actually build new infrastructure, to actually create a platform, a situation where you can provide the issue of water. So in that case, if the infrastructure is there already and it is old, it means that area in the Northern Cape was under the town in terms of the spatial segment. Then when the new government came in, it prioritized the new at the expense of the old. So as we were building new infrastructure, we neglected the needs of the old and existing infrastructure in terms of investing on the maintenance.
Do you have, does local government have people who can actually do that? Because shouldn't it have been, it's supposed to be someone's a responsibility to know, look back at the past, and going for, also take us forward to what needs to happen tomorrow. Do you have the people with the necessary capacity to actually do what you're saying needs to be done? Do you have the expertise?
Well, we are bringing another element. So the first
actually, Valerie actually brought it, And I have something I heard from last week, which I'll get into, because this also becomes a particularly important point. Valerie was saying part of the problem is that municipalities don't have groundwater specialists, right? Now,
there are mistakes of omissions that the wall-to-wall new dispensation has actually committed. There is a lack of deliberate and conscious effort to ensure that we strengthen the technical arm of the municipalities.
Okay, does that happen because of neglect, you know, or does that happen, in other words, someone is sleeping on the job? Or is it happening because there just aren't people, or these people are not being recruited, you know, to actually go, these experts are not being recruited to go where it matters so that they can do this job? Have you been able to put a finger on it as the SALGA committee that is charged with this responsibility?
Well, there are objective factors, but there are also subjective factors, things that are within our control. The first one is that if you go to the market, I will make an example. I understand that Cogta in KwaZulu-Natal went to the market, labor market, looking for water engineers with very good packages. They couldn't find them. They prefer to come as consultants rather than to be within the staff establishment of government. So those are realities. If Cogta at a provincial level in KwaZulu-Natal struggles with its good packages to attract the best in the market, how much more a rural municipality, since even its salaries is linked to the grading system?
Can I stop you? Can I stop you right there? You know, your colleague, Mr. Muraga, I listened to him. Valerie, you were there at the same, was it a seminar last week? One of the things he said categorically was that the issue of skills is not an issue for local government at all. You remember that, Valerie?
I don't remember that, I think there's certain...
He did say it wasn't, and I remember, because I mean, those of us who go back to your project consolidates what happened before, what happened thereafter, I mean, know this story fairly well. Yes, we may not be as familiar with it as you are, as you people who play in that space are, but I mean, we can't jump from that era and phase to suddenly not having I mean, my eyes popped out, you know, as I was listening to that, and you are actually confirming what I suspected, and this is what is particularly interesting for me.
Well, I don't know what was the context in that conversation, but I must say part of our role in supporting municipality is to develop well-researched ideas. So if I say there is a dwindling in terms of the skills that are required by the technical arms of the municipality, it's verifiable. It's verifiable. And I've made a practical example to contextualize my point that if Cogta at the provincial level with better packages in terms of the remuneration is struggling to attract water engineers, how much more a smaller and a rural municipality? They won't be able to do that. So there is that particular challenge. And it's also affecting because the quality of water service cannot be above the quality of the technical arm of the municipality. So we still need to grapple with the question on how do we deal with those underlying causal factors? What else that needs to be done to ensure that we strengthen the technical arm of the municipality, particularly the water engineers and scientists?
Valerie, now, yes, you wanted to come in on something. I was coming to you, but yeah.
Yes, so I think there's a couple of layers to skills. So firstly, we know from the SABC reports there's a shortage of engineers at municipalities. That needs to be sorted out. We've been saying that for over a decade now.
Okay.
The second thing is the new skills area that we're talking about. If we are to move to more water security, and we are to bring in conjunctive use with groundwater plus surface water, plus a range of water reclamation, plus a range of other technologies that could supplement our supply of water such that we build resilience into communities and societies, then you have to bring in some of those new skills. The third thing is that we have had a lot of the old engineers leave, and they are young engineers. It doesn't mean there aren't engineers there, but it's like in one municipality that has massive issues, by the way, just from the physical constraint of water, right? Forget about the infrastructure part, but just trying to find the water sources. You now have one young engineer who does not necessarily have all the years of experience of shadowing an experienced engineer. So there are these massive gaps. I mean, we created a program called the Young Engineers Changemakers Program, just to make sure that young engineers in these smaller municipalities are able to build their networks and grow, because it does take time to have that expertise. It is a highly technical function to run pumps, to run pipes, to run bulk infrastructure, to do the operations and maintenance, to continually try and get a longer lifespan of that asset, of that infrastructure, such that we are able to provide the kind of services that we say. So I still think we've got a long way to go in terms of closing that gap, and that's a critical gap to close in all municipalities.
How long is that long way, Valerie, if I may ask? And I'm not being facetious here. I mean, you have very frustrated people. I cannot imagine going without water for 2-3 months, you know, but I'm in a fortunate position compared to a lot of South Africans. So when I say how long, you know, I mean practically, realistically, given the challenges, you know very well, how long will it take us to get there?
I think it'll take some time. It'll take some time, because at the end of the day, we're struggling with two things. One is to attract the engineers into the sector. The other is to retain them in. And the third one is to actually make sure that we continuously develop them in the sector. And right now, there is no major budgets around a major national engineers program that is going to, one, hire them, retain them, and skill them in that area. Yes, each municipality is doing its little bit around trying to skill the engineers, trying to give them the support. But again, this is highly technical business of infrastructure. And you've got to invest in those people, in those young people, such that they're able to deliver and support the services for that country. So, in my opinion, if we are able to do something in a very concerted way per municipality and nationally, then I think we could actually get there in about 5 years. But otherwise, I think we're going to go on a very long, incremental pathway and be continuously facing some of these issues. And again, even if we do get the engineers, remember, adding on top of that, we've got climate-related migration that will occur, climate change and droughts that will occur and which will affect reliability, assurance, supply. We've got basically economic development, which is stagnant at the moment. So the urbanization, the increase of informal settlements within towns and cities is increasing at a rate we can't even afford to find the space to put infrastructure in. So if you don't have strong cohorts of engineers that are thinking around these solutions, that are managing performance agreements with SMMEs and private sector in order to supplement the services, we are not really going to cross that line.
Tammy, at the local sphere where it all matters, where service delivery happens, you too have a responsibility to make sure that South Africans do actually understand the nature of the problem, so that they have a full appreciation of what is going to confront them. What as SALGA have you done or are you doing to make sure that the cohort that is coming after the November one has a very clear understanding of the nature of the problem, but two, actually do their best, you know, to service the communities?
Voyo, I come from a school of thought that says you can't keep on doing things in the same way and expect to achieve different results. The second one says, we say in Salga, if there is a dust in the corner, there is no way that the dust can remove itself. The broom must go to that corner to remove that dust. So these are things, the saga that we are saying must happen. In the municipality, there is a political arm, there's also administrative arm. In solving this matter, taking the broom to the corner to remove the dust, the political component have a role to play. The first one is a paradigm shift in terms of the policy choices that we make. We need to find a formula of balancing between building new infrastructure and also prioritizing the maintenance. Because if you don't do that, you will take 2 steps forward in terms of providing new infrastructure to those who do not have, while taking 2 steps backward if you neglect maintenance, because the infrastructure will collapse and the question of reliability will come to the party. So as you allocate the limited resources, you need to depart from the balance of evidence, consolidate in advance. Make sure that what you already, where you've got infrastructure, make sure that the issues of quality and reliability are sustained. And take and analyze what is objectively possible to take in terms of building the new infrastructure. There is no point in building new and neglecting the old. Those are the lessons from the practical experience. Then on administration, we need to then depart from the new administration must understand that the quality of service, maintenance, operation and maintenance cannot be above the quality of the technical arm. Now, the people that are there in the municipality, we need to then say, what is the gap between where they should be and where they are? Working together with the local government sector, they need to then say, what is it that needs to be done to close that particular gap between where they should be and where they are? And without that process, this is a world of processes governed by laws, not a world of event. Solving that particular challenge will not be an event, but they must take conscious decision to then say, how do we actually strengthen and reinforce the skills that is there? How do we make sure that we recruit competent people in terms of our recruitment strategy, but how do we also retain them? How do we upskill them? Those are already in the system. So those are the things that also need to be done. But also the issue of the financial component, the financial arm also comes in. I want to argue and say, we're arguing that the local government fiscal framework has reached what they call in the rules that govern the issue of driving and so on, cul-de-sac. You know, the fiscal framework of local government, the things that we need to do, our mandate in Schedule 4 and 5B of the Constitution represent the expenditure composition, all things that must find expression in the expenditure. But if you look at the revenue-raising mechanisms that are prescribed, that are supposed to actually use them to finance the expenditure, the two are not talking to each other. Firstly, if you read the white paper of 1998, it says the greater portion of the municipal revenue should come from the tax, which is rates, and also the user pay mechanism. So the people who are using water must pay them. There must be a cost-reflective tariffs. So you collect the cost of production and add liquid to make sure that there is surplus. But in that particular case, it's not happening. The people in the dynamics in the economy renders many customers below affordability threshold. So they can't pay, they're too poor to actually pay. But also, as SALCA, we are saying to the new administration, the fifth administration of local government, we've been making this call ever since, and we have not moved an inch. And it's within the span of control of national government. As SALCA, we've been saying, we need an independent regulator. National department currently is regulating. We do not think that they will execute that task with objectivity, because they are players.
Okay.
The national government is a player, the water board are the players, the municipality were players. We need somebody, like in the space of electricity, you've got NERSA. We need NERSA in the water space.
Okay.
That is going to balance the issue of affordability, but also the issue of sustainability.
Okay.
Those are the things that we believe that must be done.
We've only scratched the surface of what I had hoped we would get into this evening. Shows just how important and complex this issue is. But I have to thank both of you, Valerie Naidu, who is an executive with the Water Research Commission, and Tami Ngubane, who is the national chairperson of the Water and Sanitation Working Group at the South African Local Government Association. And that's all we had time for this evening. To join us again next week on Monday, when we'll be debating the municipality, the metropolitan municipality of eThekwini, and that's where our Monday debate is going to take place from on Monday. To join us then, have a great weekend.